There, my name is Rufus Deuchler, Worldwide Design Evangelist at Adobe. In this short video, I want to show you what we did with Digital Publishing Suite Single Edition for our cloud members, Adobe Creative Cloud. That's right. Let's start with a few slides, because there's a few concepts I need to put in the clear. Let's begin with the terminology I'm going to use today. First of all, the thing that we're going to create is called an app, which is an app that appears on the iPad, and which is also an app that you will be able to sell through the Apple App Store. Okay, so we are in fact creating an app. Other two concepts which are pretty important are the concepts of folio and article. A folio is the publication you are building, which is going to become the app. The articles, on the other hand, are the series of InDesign documents that will create the folio. All right? So a folio is composed of one or more articles. The articles are the ones you can swipe through while watching them on the iPad. The other thing that we need to talk about as well is the layout, because you have a choice here. You can decide whether your app will only have a horizontal layout or a vertical layout or a combination of both. So you can decide how to create that layout when you start working. The general workflow is really based on your knowledge of InDesign, the page layout application. So you will be using InDesign to do your layout, the vertical pages and the horizontal pages. Then you will use a panel in InDesign, which is called folio overlays. And basically what that panel allows you to do is to add interactivity to your document, such as slideshows, 360 panoramas, video and music, things like that. Then, once we've created the layout, we've added the overlays, we move over to the folio builder, where we start to gather all of our articles and build them into a folio. And once you're done with that, you're going to create the app with a new application called the DPS App Builder. And that DPS App Builder actually works on your machine, and you can create the app from there. And then, once we're done with creating the app, we can then test it and submit it to Apple for approval and then for publication on the App Store. There are a few requirements for that workflow. The first requirement, of course, is that you use InDesign to create your app. You can't use Photoshop or Illustrator. So InDesign is your weapon of choice here. So you build your content in InDesign. Then, what you also need, of course, is an iPad. The iPad will be very useful for testing your application before you actually send it over to Apple. You will be able to test it in various ways. You will be able to test it directly from InDesign and preview what your users will see on the iPad. And then you will also be, towards the end of the workflow, you will be able to test the app that you've created and install that on your iPad and test it. You will need a Mac to do that, because the DPS App Builder works on the Mac operating system, Mac OS. And what you will also need is a Mac to submit your app, because all of the applications that Apple requires you to have to actually publish the app work on the Macintosh. Let's continue. You will see that there is one document that I will mention quite frequently today. This is a step-by-step guide to DPS Single Edition. All right, this is a guide that was specifically created for users who want to leverage InDesign to create a single edition. And it includes information about every aspect of creating the app, all the way from becoming an iOS developer with Apple to actually submitting the app to the App Store. Preparing for a single edition. The first thing you will need to work with that system is an Adobe ID. The Adobe ID is something that most of you already have, because you used it in the past to actually register your software with Adobe. Or if you are a new Creative Cloud member, you have an Adobe ID that lets you access all of the software and the services and the syncing space that we have prepared for our Creative Cloud members. And now, in Creative Cloud, we also have the ability to create an unlimited amount of DPS single edition publications, which is pretty cool. So, you have to have an Adobe ID, and this will be used in InDesign to actually open the DPS tools. Now, if you don't see the DPS tools, or if you don't have the latest DPS tools, you'll need to go to Help, Updates, and download the latest tools. It's very important that you always have the latest tools of the DPS desktop tools for CS6. What you will also need is an Apple ID. All right, so we talked about the Adobe ID, which identifies you with Adobe. Now you also need an Apple ID, an ID that identifies you with Apple. And that Apple ID will allow you to create a iOS developer account. This is something you pay a little bit extra, but you have to become an iOS developer for this workflow to work. And this is used for credentials and certificates and to create an app ID, an ID for the application you're going to be creating. Then you will also need access to iTunes Connect, which is the part of the workflow that will allow you to upload your application once it's ready and being tested and everything to the Apple system, to the App Store for review and then for publication on the App Store. If we continue, you will have an iOS developer account then. And this iOS developer account will be fundamental because you will need a series of certificates that need to be attached to the app. The first certificates are P12 files, .p12 files, and the second series are mobile provisioning files. And these are certificates for developer recognition and distribution recognition. Basically, the developer certificates certify that the app has indeed been made by you, or in my case, by me. Okay, so it certifies that the app I'm sending to the system has actually been made by Rufus. And the distribution certificate allows you to link the developer applications to a series of devices so that you can test them. This is why you need to provide Apple with a list of devices that you're going to be testing with. All right, so pick up the devices in your with your colleagues in your office, for example, or your bosses, to make sure that everybody will have the chance to actually look at the app as if it were a real app on the iPad. So it's very important to have a list of devices that you will test with. Then you will create an app ID. An app ID is the identification of the application you're going to create. And this is fundamental for iTunes Connect to set pricing and the release date and things like that. Then you will need to create a developer mobile provisioning file and a distribution mobile provisioning file. But as I said, all of this is clearly explained in that guide that you can download from your DPS windows. All right? It is clearly explained how you create these P12 files and the mobile provisioning files. You will see me in the demo just in a second how I actually use those files in the workflow. What you will also need is a series of icons, because icons are on your iPad, that's what the user sees. Icons are in the App Store. Icons are everywhere, all right? So you need a series of icons, from the smallest icons to the larger icons. And since the new iPad came out, which has a much higher resolution, we need to create another series of icons, okay, which are basically just double the size of the others. What you will also need is splash screens. Typically, I create splash screens in Photoshop, and I try to make them slightly different than the cover, because the splash screen is an image that appears to your viewer before the cover of your publication appears. So it's a good idea to have a different image, otherwise your users will think that maybe something is broken and that it got stuck or something, and maybe have a little writing that says loading, please be patient, or something like that. Although you will see that the splash screen only comes up for a few seconds while the application loads. Creating the folio. The cool thing with InDesign is that as you start working on the new document, you can already choose how the document is going to be formatted, let's say. So in the new document window, you can choose as your intent the digital publishing. And this will give you access to all the correct sizes for the iPad size, for example, the 1024 by 768 pixels. It'll turn your color management in InDesign to RGB. So RGB is actually red, green, blue images that you will also see on the iPad. So we keep the images in the same kind of colorimetric workflow. And the decision you have to take is whether you will have multiple orientations, all right? Because this is very important to understand. You cannot have articles of varying orientations. So in a folio, your articles need to be all horizontal or all vertical or all a combination of both orientations. All right, so this is a choice that you need to make early on, right, before you start working on it. And this is something where you can really leverage InDesign CS6 new feature to create alternate layouts, vertical and horizontal. Then, for building the folio, it's actually pretty simple. In the Folio Builder panel, you will be able to add metadata, add articles, open the design files, and add metadata to the articles. Metadata is also a word that you will hear me say frequently today. Basically, the metadata is the description of the article, the description of the folio. And all of that metadata you will find in the table of contents in your application. So this is very important that you do that very, very wisely. And you can also, from InDesign directly, preview directly on the device, provided that the device is actually attached to your computer and that the Adobe viewer is actually turned on. Let me show you for a second. Let me go over here into my screen here, and we see that I have the Adobe viewer. When the Adobe viewer is turned on, I can preview directly from InDesign on the iPad. Let me go back to my slides for a second. We're almost done. Let's go back here to building a folio, okay, and then building the app, of course. And what you need to build the app is your iOS credentials. So the mobile provisioning files, the matching P12 files, they all need to work together. Have your icons and splash screens ready, and you have to use a Mac to actually be able to use the DPS app builder, which you will see in a second. And it all starts with the folio, because you use the folio to add the articles, and then from the folio menu, you can say, very simply, create app. And the DPS app builder will launch automatically. You will have to sign in, or you will be signed in automatically with your Adobe ID. You can add information in all the panels and then create the app from there. But we will see that. Then you will be able to download a developer app to test on your devices and all of the devices that you have listed with Apple, with your coworkers or your bosses. And one thing not to forget also is to take screenshots of this app, because when you submit the app to Apple, you will have to also provide screenshots so that people get an idea of the content of your publication while they browse it in the App Store. And then we can also download the distribution app for submission. Submitting the app, you do that with iTunes Connect. And there you have another app that you will have in the system, which is a zipped file, which you simply upload to Apple with the icons and the screenshots. And again, I cannot repeat this enough. Please download the step-by-step guide, because this really, and read it at least once, just to know exactly how to create all of the Apple certificates and how to upload the app to the App Store. And then in iTunes Connect, that's where you will be able to name your app. That's where you will be able to set the pricing, decide also on the publication date, etc. Then you will upload your app, and then you have to wait for approval. And approval by Apple can take anything from up to 2 to 6 weeks, all right? Apple will actually have somebody look at your content and decide whether it can be published to the App Store. All right, so sometimes it can happen that Apple decides, no, this cannot be published as is because it goes against our rules or something like that, and they'll tell you you have to change this and that. But we all keep our fingers crossed that everything goes well all the time. All right, so once approval happens, the app will go into the to the App Store. If the approval date is more down the line, later than well, if the approval date is earlier than the actual publishing date that you've set, well, the app will be sitting there waiting for your publishing date. All right, so let's go to InDesign and have a look at how that workflow actually works. What I have here is a series of InDesign documents, and if I go here into the Pages menu, and I'm actually going to leverage this new CS6 feature in View Pages by Alternate Layout, and we will see that in the Pages panel, I have both the vertical layout and the horizontal layout. And I have that for all of my documents: the cover, the artist profile for Alice Ritter, who's a fashion designer, and a catalog of Alice Ritter's fashion. All right. So let's start working with these just for a little while, because there's some interactivity that I may want to add here. So let's go down here, and here, see, I have 4 images, which maybe I want to transform into an interactive slideshow. So in InDesign, this is really, really simple. What I'm going to do is select these 4 images, and I'm going to overlap them and put them into position like that, and maybe make them bigger like so that my viewers can actually see the full size of the images. And with the images still selected, I would go here under Window, Interactive, and create object states. I'm going to create a new object state and simply call this Gallery. All right, so I have 4 images in that object. The cool thing is that once I've done this, and with this still selected, if I go to Window and Folio Overlays, which are the interactive parts of the document, InDesign will recognize immediately what sort of object that is. So it went immediately into the slideshow. And I can choose the crossfade. I can also define whether my user can actually swipe to change the images. So I'm going to select that. And basically, I'm done. Let's go into the catalog here, because here on the last page, what I have is an image. And if I double click on it, we see that it is at 27%. It could be much larger. So what I want to do with that image, and I'm going to select it, is to actually make it zoomable, so that when my user touches it, it zooms in and the user can look at the detail of that blouse, for example. So let's turn pan and zoom on. All right, at that point, I'm done. I've created my layouts, both vertical and horizontal, and all I need to do now is to use the Folio Builder panel here. And the Folio Builder panel, as it opens, uses your Adobe ID to connect with DPS. And basically, being a Creative Cloud member already identified you as a person that can create as many DPS single edition apps as you want. All right, there is no limit. So basically, in this panel, InDesign already tells me, click new folio icon to create a folio. So this is exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to create the new folio. I'm going to call it Alice Ritter, something like that. I can choose the target device. In our case, it is the iPad. All right, single edition works on the iPad. And the orientation, you see, automatically went to both vertical and horizontal. All right, in case you have a publication that is only vertical, you would choose that one. And I will leave everything as is. And for the cover preview, I can actually choose images. And these images can be different than the real cover. I can create those images with InDesign by saving the cover as a PNG, or I can use Photoshop to do those images. But let's go find them very quickly. Let's go here into my assets. And I have the cover previews. Let's start with the vertical cover. Okay, let's open that. And let's also insert the horizontal cover here, which is this one here. Okay, open. And basically, I'm done. Once I click OK, that folio will be produced. It is being saved. And as soon as it is being saved, this window will close, and we will have that folio here inside of our folio builder. All right, and as you can see, automatically it went from the folio right to the article level of the folio. In fact, InDesign tells me, click Add Article. So let me just go over here to the cover and add the Open InDesign document. All right, let's add this and give it a name. Let's call it cover. Let's leave it as a PDF, portrait layout, iPad V, landscape layout, iPad H. Do you know where these names come from? Well, they come from here. iPad V, iPad H, from your Pages panel, where you have your alternate layouts. All right, so very, very useful this. So let's say OK to this. And as soon as I say OK, well, InDesign will take all of the elements, the images, the text, the graphics, and create the article that goes into the folio. All right, so right now it is still uploading the article, and it'll upload it to the cloud so that it is now part of that folio. Now, of course, this uploading can take less or more time, all depending on the speed of your internet. But let's actually also add this profile here, add the article, add open InDesign document, and I'm going to call this one profile. All right, and say OK to that. I'm going to continue without saving the document. This profile, of course, is a little bit heftier because it has a lot more images, it has more text, it has interactivity built into it. So here we go. It is uploading the article, and now it was building the article, and now it is uploading the article. Once this is done, we will add our last article, which is the catalog here. And let's have a quick look. We have the horizontal format and the vertical format. All right, everything looks good. Let's wait for this article to upload. As I said, this really depends on your upload speed of your internet, and it can take some time. So let's see how patient we have to be with that, but usually it goes pretty swiftly. Okay, almost there. One little bit more. Come on, you can do it. Still uploading the article. Okay, done. All right, so now we are here in the catalog, and we are going to add the open InDesign document here as well. Catalog, like this, PDF, vertical and horizontal layout. Okay, perfect. And now in this case, as soon as it's created the folio, as it's finished building the folio, I can start working on the metadata. Remember, the metadata is very important because this is what will be shown in the table of contents. So building the folio is done. I can now move to the cover and go here to the article properties. And we will see that I've already added a title, a byline, who the author is. I can also add a kicker. I'm going to do that in the second article, and a little description for my users to actually see in the application. And I can also choose to change the image that will appear in the table of contents. In this case, it has been created automatically. And I can also choose not to hide from the table of contents, or to say that this is an advertisement, which is very useful. So let's say OK to this. Let's choose the profile for a second and go here into the article properties. Okay, here we have the byline, Felix Q, kicker, and here we can say maybe fashion section. Okay, that's the kicker. That's the section of your magazine. The table of content is fine. Let's say OK to that. And the catalog is here. It's been uploaded. Let's also add article properties here. There's none, so let's give them all. Catalog, byline, staff, kicker, none, description, Alice, Ritter, spring 2013. All right, and say OK to that. At that point, we have 3 articles inside of a folio. If we drill down more, we will actually see the various layouts. They have to build, but we don't have time to wait for that now. Let's go back into the folio, and here it is, the folio with 3 articles. Now, we're done. We've created the design in InDesign. We've created the folio with the folio builder. Now, all we need to do is to go here in the menu in the folio builder and actually click Create App. As simple as that. Create App. Now, InDesign will take, again, all of the content. It's checking everything, the integrity, that all of the images are there, that all of the elements needed to actually create the app are there for the system to be recognized. As soon as this is done, the DPS app builder will launch. It will use your Adobe ID credentials to actually log into the DPS, and you will see that you've already been recognized as a Creative Cloud member. All right, so there's no mention here about buying a single edition from the adobe.com store, all right, because you can already do that as a Creative Cloud member. You have an unlimited amount of apps that you can create being a Creative Cloud member. So of course, it still tells you have to register as an iOS developer to create the certificates. You have to log into the iOS Developer Center. You can, again, here download the step-by-step guide to single edition, which is very important. I recommend you all read it at least once. And let's continue. Now, what it wants is the app name. So we said Alice Ritter, all right? And it has also advanced options. For example, if I want to enable the PDF zooming, we've exported the folio as PDF, and PDF zooming actually allows your readers to pinch and zoom on the content to actually go closer to the text, for example. I can enable bookmarks. I can decide what the supported languages are. So these are the advanced options. But let's go to the next window. Because in the next window, we'll have to add all of the icons I was talking about before. And these are all icons I've prepared ahead of time with Photoshop or Illustrator, all right? At all the correct sizes. Now there's a cool tip here that I can give you. If I go here to the Finder and actually go to my icons, here I have a folder with all of the icons and the PNGs, the splash screens and everything. All I need to do is to select everything, drag and drop it in that window, and the system, let me just select one, cancel, all right, something like that, and drag and drop it, and automatically the right pixel dimensions will go into the right windows, all right? Very useful. I also have the ability here to enable the shine effect on the app icon, if you like that. And you see here, HD has a little alert sign. Well, that means that I've created all of the icons for the standard definition. But what if I want to target the new iPad as well? Well, I just need to click here and take my icons again, because I also have my high resolution icons here, and simply drag and drop them here, and they are already placed. All right, and again, for the high definition, I can enable or disable the shine. Well, this is as far as the icons are concerned. So let's go next. And this is where you will need your mobile provisioning and distribution mobile provisioning, the developer and the distribution one. So here I have saved them all in one location here. These are my two mobile provisions. And again, I will simply drag and drop them, and they will be placed in the correct position. At that point, I say next, and DPS App Builder actually tells me you are almost there. That's right, we're almost there. There are final steps though, all right? So one of the steps, of course, is to test your app, all right? It is very important that the app that you submit to Apple is as functional as possible, all right? You don't want to go back and replace the app with a corrected version. And again, we have a link to the step-by-step guide for a single edition. So let's just click here, Create App. It is submitting the build to the queue, and this pop-up will actually disappear once it's all complete. Okay, perfect. And now let me show you the Manage window. If I go here and just say OK, we will see that my Alice Ritter app is being created here, but I will show you here on that other app that I've created earlier exactly what you'll get. You'll get a developer app, which is the .ipa, which is an app that you can download to your desktop, and then through iTunes you can install it on the iPads that have been listed with Apple. All right, so you will have on your iPad an app that looks exactly like what your users will get. And then the distribution app. Oh, by the way, up here it's all done. All right, so my folio with all of the articles has already been transformed into an app. And the distribution app, the .zip file, is actually the app, the file that you will submit to Apple for checking. All right, this is what you will submit to the App Store. All right, so here we're done. And basically, once I've downloaded that app and inserted my developer certificate, we can now go back to my iPad here. And what you will get is an app pretty much like this, all right? An app with a button. And you will see that I have the shine here. And when I open the app, I have, let me go back home here. I have the cover. Okay. I have the articles. And if I go down in the articles, I can swipe through the articles. And let me just check if we have the interactivity that we've created on the last page here. Tap on the photo. This is the 100% image. And now my users can actually go into that image and actually check the quality of the fabric. Let me move back down to the other article. And let's check if my my gallery here works. So by swiping, I can now go through the images. All right, exactly like I had planned in InDesign. There's other navigations that you can do here. Simply by tapping on the screen, I can go here to the table of contents, and you will see that in the table of contents, I have all of the texts that I have added to the metadata. This is why it was so important. And if I click on or tap this button here, I will go into the view of the articles at their current state. So let me just go into the article and just go back up and put them to their original state, something like that. Okay, and tap again here. All right, so this is also a way that I can navigate the content. And here you will also notice that I have the description up here. So I have the kicker, the name of the article, the byline, and the description. All right, and I also have the ability to actually favorite it. All right, so let me just get out of here and go back to my screen. So this is what you get, a real app that you can test on your machine, and then that you can submit to Apple for revision and then for publication in the Apple App Store. So as you've seen, by using InDesign and using these new DPS tools, it has become extremely simple to create a digital publishing suite single edition publication being an Adobe Creative Cloud member. So enjoy it, and I'm very curious to see what you guys will do with that. Thank you.